8. This is our lesson 3 on the country of Russia. And we're going to be dealing with the Northern European Russia. So if you look on your map, you will see the northeast Russia, which contains the two largest and most important cities in all of Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg. Moscow plus 17 other cities occupy the what's known as the Central Federal District that has a population of 38 million people. It's obviously located in the westernmost corner of Russia. It's a landlocked region, has no borders on any of the seas, and it contains 35% of Russia's population. More than one third of the population of Russia lives in that corner, basically in that northwest corner. Three rivers run through that district, making it the center of Russian industry and trade. Moscow itself, even though that whole corner consists of 38 million people, Moscow itself has a population of just under 12 million. That's a lot, still a lot of people. It's the largest city in all of Europe. A very cosmopolitan city, meaning it's very modern, has beautiful architecture. The Kremlin is at its core, and that is the home to not only the president of Russia, today, that would be Putin, but also the treasures of the many czar regimes. Red Square is outside of the Kremlin, and it actually is home to Lenin's tomb, also home to the Russian Historical Museum and to St. Basil's Cathedral. And that is the probably when we think of the Kremlin, we think of those kind of onion-shaped domes that are all different colors. That is actually St. Basil's Cathedral. It's not the Kremlin in and of itself, but they're all located there on the Red Square. Moscow is colder than most European capitals because it is very far into the interior of the continent, and there are no moderating winds coming in from any sea that can make those cold winds any warmer. The winters are very harsh and very snowy. Even the summer temperatures very seldom rise above the into the 60s. Rainfall is unpredictable, and so that part of the country very often loses its crops. Its crops are not successful from one year to another. There are deciduous forests south of Moscow, and there are coniferous forests north of Moscow. The other city of note is St. Petersburg. It's Russia's second largest city, population of 5 million as compared to Moscow's 12 million. It is its main port on the Baltic Sea. Back up to the Baltic Sea, aren't we? Its buildings and its waterways really resemble Venice. Remember when we were in Italy, we were talking about Venice, that is so many islands just connected with canals and bridges. That sort of is what St. Petersburg looks like, except on a much larger scale. Shipbuilding, a very important part of Russia's economy, flourishes there in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, because it's so far north, actually experiences what is known as white nights. It has no sunsets from mid June to mid July, and it just has kind of a whitish twilight, and so that's why it's called white nights. But the winter months, they are long and dark. A very different part of the world than what we're used to. When we were talking about Scandinavia and the long nights and the long days of summer and the long nights of winter, that's experienced across the northern part of Europe and Asia. Russia has what's known as the Volga Baltic waterway, and it's actually well connected with water as well as with railroad travel. It has several large interior lakes that are connected with this Volga Baltic waterway. Russia is actually bordered by three oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Arctic, and 12 seas. That gives them a border, but not protection between themselves and other countries. Russia is connected with the Atlantic Ocean through the Baltic Sea in the west and through the Black Sea in the south. It is rather amazing that all those major seas are truly connected, either in a natural way through straits or in a man-made way through canals. The Kola Peninsula, you'll notice that way over in the west there, is adjacent to Finland. It's inhabited by Lapps. Remember when we were in Scandinavia, we mentioned that Finland is not on one of the peninsulas. It is connected to Russia. And so the Lapps that are also part of Russia, are also part of Finland, are also residents of Russia. That land is very rich in mineral and metal resources. Are you familiar with the dog breed Samoyeds? They're white, very furry dogs on the large side, and they have a tail that kind of scoops around and rests on their back. They are bred here in this area on the Kola Peninsula. Southern European Russia now is occupied by the Volga River. I should say the Volga River runs through the southern European Russia. It is the longest river in all of Europe, 2,193 miles long. That's a pretty long river. Not as long as the Amazon or the Nile, but it is the longest river in Europe. And the canals make it the hub of Russia's shipping system. Stalingrad, which is now called Volgograd, we'll see that there are a lot of name changes in this part of Europe and in Asia. That is Russia's third largest city with 1 million people, as compared to 5 million in St. Petersburg and 11 or 12 million in Moscow. But Stalingrad or Volgograd is important because it is on the Caspian Sea. Here we go with another sea. And it is Russia's southern shipping port, a very, 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 very important city in Russia. The Caucasus Mountains form Russia's only natural land border, and they divide Europe from Asia between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. There are actually 8 Russian territories in that area. And also the Mount Elbrus, which is the highest mountain in Europe, is located there. And I have here that is 198,000 feet above sea level, and I am sure that that is not true. So I'm going to have to look and see how high Mount Elbrus actually is. Asian Russia is east of the Ural Mountains, and it is broadly termed Siberia. It's an area that's unprotected by the east and west mountain ranges that would protect it from the cold fronts that push down from the Arctic. So that area is cold to the extreme. Along the Arctic coast are found walruses and seals, reindeer that nibble the mosses of the tundra. There are no trees there. The soil is permafrost, so there's no agriculture there. Further south are vast coniferous forests of pine and fir and spruce and larch. Lots of wolves in those forests. The summer temperatures actually can rise to 100 degrees, but the winter temperatures can drop to minus 60 degrees below zero. So that is why it is permafrost. That warm weather of the summers is not enough to get through the permafrost. Southern Siberia, on the other hand, has weather that is similar to Moscow. And we did say that Moscow is very cold and snowy, but not as snowy and cold as the northern plains of Russia, of Siberia. The Western Siberian plain is actually 1/7 of Russia's total area, over 1 million square miles, and it is the largest plain in the world. PLAIN, obviously, not PLANE. The Taymyr Peninsula, and if you look on your map, you will see that up at the top of the map of Russia, is the northernmost mainland in the world. There are other islands that are further north than the Taymyr Peninsula, but the Taymyr Peninsula is the northernmost mainland, the most northernmost mainland in the world. The eastern Siberian upland is a mountain wilderness. The largest of the Russian republics is called Sakha, and it's in the interior. The climate is the harshest of any inhabited land. It includes the New Siberian Islands in the Arctic Sea, covers 1.2 million square miles, which is just a little bit smaller than the whole contiguous states of the United States. That is just a region of Russia that endures excruciatingly cold weather. And most people who live in that area work in the gold mines. The far east part of Russia actually has more Pacific coastline than any other country. Russia has more Pacific coastline than any other country. The climate is relatively moderate there, but the ports still freeze, although some of them can be kept open with icebreakers. Many of the icebreakers are manufactured or built in Russia. Some of them are built in the Scandinavian countries. That far east part of Russia shares borders with China and North Korea. And Japan is just across a very narrow channel from Russia's Sakhalin Island. United States actually is very close to Russia. We don't think of it as being close, but if you look up in the northeast corner of Russia, near the Bering Strait, it actually reaches across a 55-mile wide stretch of water, and then you are in Alaska. You actually can see Alaska from parts of Russia, and you actually can see Russia from certain parts of Alaska. The peninsulas in the far north coast, that Chukchi Peninsula is the one that reaches toward Alaska. The Kamchatka Peninsula extends south towards the Pacific. Kind of interesting, that particular peninsula has 29 active volcanoes and also contains Siberia's highest peak. And then the Kuril Mountains stretch between northern Japan and that peninsula. Actually, one last bit of information is that Russia once owned Alaska, and it sold it to the United States in 1867. Alaska did not become a state in 1867. It was a territory, but it became a state in, I believe, the 1950s. So that is our study in Alaska, study in Russia.